Some breaking news at a San Francisco rescue operation underway after a worker became trapped in an underground trench. KTVU's Christian Cafton joins us live with what we know so far. Christian, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Frank Garcia, we're starting out looking directly at the scene right now because this seems to be a pivotal point in this operation. Up until about a minute and a half ago, there was the rumble of the vacuum truck that was running since we certainly arrived on scene. In the last minute and a half or so, that has stopped. We've seen firefighters take a step away from that trench and create kind of a wall around it. So let's tell you what we know so far about this situation. What we've heard is that sometime before 10:45 this morning, there was a utility worker here close to the intersection of Divisadero and Oak, actually right out in front of 1101 Oak Street in San Francisco. Again, that's one of the major east-west roads through town. At that time, the trench collapsed on a utility worker who was in that area. Firefighters tell me that they received multiple 911 phone calls and arrived here on scene. They have been working steadily ever since, trying to remove that entrapped person. At this point, we do not know what utility company that worker may have been associated with. We also don't know the condition of that person. So right now we're going to be joined by voice with Captain Jonathan Baxter from San Francisco Fire Department, who can tell us in particular what's going on at this moment. We've noticed a sudden shift in the activity. Captain, what can you tell us about the situation at this point?
Well, at this time, our firefighters and trench rescue workers have effectively reached the individual. He's been assessed by our medical team of paramedics as well as our fire department physician. And unfortunately, and we were saddened to say that this is now a fatal incident. More information on who this individual is will come at a later time, and we will be working on what project this was managed by, whether it was a city agency or a private agency. That information will come again. At this moment, we have over 50 firefighters who worked for about 2 hours to rescue this individual, and again, we are extremely saddened to say that this is now a fatal incident.
And do we know how this collapse may have happened, and do we know if the proper shoring was in place? Have you found evidence of the proper shoring that's usually in place for trench work?
All that will come at a later time during an investigation that will be done by proper agencies and authorities that are responsible for that. What we do know is that this was a utility construction site. During the utility construction site work, a collapse occurred within that area, and this individual was trapped under 8 feet of dirt and concrete, and it took about 2 hours to effect the technical trench rescue to reach the individual.
We also noticed the presence of several canines on scene who aided in trying to help locate this individual. Did that help in trying to find where to dig?
The initial dispatch was that this was a 6-story collapse with an individual trapped, so our search and rescue canines were deployed as well as our tracking canines. When we arrived on scene, we had this area. We were able to utilize those canines to give an indication of where the individual may be within that footprint. It did assist our trench rescue firefighter rescuers in establishing where to work to make sure that they're not digging on top of but around that individual.
And Captain Baxter, if you can also give us a sense of how difficult it is to dig through the soil here. I think that people might be familiar with San Francisco, but they might not realize what's under their feet, that this is not packed soil like you might see in other areas. This is sandy soil. If you could talk about the difficulty in trying to remove that, trying to keep that out of the way so that your firefighters and rescue workers can be safe as well.
So this is extremely a technical rescue where we have to place oxygen down for the victim as well as for the rescue workers. We have unstable earth on the side and below us as we're working in there, and we're putting weight on it because we're putting firefighters, rescue workers, and rescue gear in that area to affect the rescue of the individual. So that's why you saw a vacuum truck that we special called from our city partner agencies that was vacuuming up a lot of the debris that effectively assisted us in reaching the individual as quickly as possible.
All right, Captain Jonathan Baxter, San Francisco Fire Department, thank you so much for joining us. We'll connect with you a little bit later on. And again, so you're hearing there from Captain Baxter that unfortunately this has now turned into a fatal incident. That sometime before 10:45, this individual, a utility worker, was in that trench working when it collapsed in on them. At this point, again, we are not clear on who this individual was or what utility company they were working for, whether it was a private work for the apartment or whether this was a public worker. We have seen crews in the area from PG&E and from the Department of Public Works here. So at this point, it is unclear exactly who this individual may have been. But again, the very latest from Captain Jonathan Baxter with San Francisco Fire Department is that this has now turned into a deadly incident. So we will continue to monitor the situation here on scene and bring you any more developments as they occur. But again, at this point, the difficult, challenging news that after 2 hours of trying to rescue this person in this trench, this has now turned into a recovery operation. Back to you guys.
All right. Very difficult day. Christian, thank you for that. We'll have another